This
One day,
conference will now be recorded.
power converter topologies in renewable energy sources, organized by the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, NSRIT. Before starting the session, I request our department HOD and convener of this webinar, Dr. R.S.R. Krishnan Naidu, to speak few words. Sir, please.
Good morning to all participants. This is Dr. R.S.R. Krishnan Naidu, Associate Professor in EEE Department, NSRIT. A warm welcome to all participants who have been successfully registered in our webinar, Power Converter Topologies in RES. I hope all of you are staying safe and doing good in this pandemic situation. I am very thankful to the management, NSRIT, for encouraging us to organize these online technical events in this pandemic situation, COVID-19. Coming to a few words on this institution. This institute was established in 2008 and was awarded with NAAC A graded. The greenery in and around the campus and infrastructure make this institute stand among the topmost colleges in Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. And I also thank our today's resource person, Dr. Shankar Peddapati Garu, to accept our invitation. I wholeheartedly thank and congratulate all the participants for the huge response from various states pan India. Now, I request all the participants to utilize this session to enhance your knowledge. Thank you, one and all. Now, I'm handovering the session to the Shankar Peddapati Garu. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to introduce our resource person, Dr. Shankar Peddapati Garu. Dr. Shankar Peddapati is working as assistant professor in NIT Andhra Pradesh. He was awarded the doctorate degree from NIT Tiruchirappalli for his work on design, implementation, and analysis of few optimization algorithms for MPPT in PV systems under partial shading conditions. Today, we are very privileged to have him as a resource person. Thank you, sir. Now I would request Dr. Shankar Peddapati Garu to start the session. Sir, please. Shankar, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sridevi, for introducing. So I thank management of NSRIT and I thank the team of NSRIT who has make the event happen. So I, first of all, the course is about power converters for PV system applications, but I am not covering all the power converters. I thought initially to cover the power converters, but instead of covering many topologies, I thought like a few converters if I could take, and then if I deliver properly because of limited time, then I think it will be effective. So though the title seems like power converters for renewable systems or PV systems, the focus is on DC-DC converters mostly. And if somebody are interested in other converter topologies, you may ask, you may raise your questions while having discussions. You may ask some questions, then we may discuss about that queries. Coming to the topic, so first of all, before discussing about the DC-DC converters, so you need to have a little idea about the RC and RL transients. You are aware. Just I am giving a little introduction at this point. So you are aware that RC elements like resistance elements and inductance are the passive elements. Okay, because like capacitor is named as voltage stiff element and inductor is named as current stiff element, right? That means the voltage across the inherent property of the capacitor is doesn't allow sudden change in voltage. The inherent property of the inductor is it doesn't allow sudden change in current. So in case if you apply a voltage across RC, the voltage linearly, like the voltage increases exponentially as I shown here. See, as I shown here, the voltage increases like this. It doesn't increase because if you close the switch, it doesn't change the voltage from 0 to 5 volts instantaneously. It takes some time. Therefore, the capacitor is named as voltage stiff element. And coming to inductor, inductor also, for example, if I close the switch, inductor charges. Okay, so the charging and discharging, the current, it takes some finite time. So because inductor is a doesn't allow sudden change in current. That's a physical property. You know that the reason behind is in case of inductor, the current I is equal to, hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, is okay. The current through the inductor, you just see the formula. The current through the inductor and the voltage across the capacitor. The voltage across the capacitor V is equal to C into dV by dt, right? So sorry, the voltage across the inductor is equal to V is equal to L into dA by dt. L into dA by dt. Otherwise, I is integral. Like, so if the current changes, like if the change in current is there within a short time, then voltage across inductor rises. Okay, that's a problem. So obviously, we usually provide the freewheeling path for the inductor to discharge. There are two important parameters to remember. One is we cannot connect a switch and inductor in series. We cannot connect a switch and capacitor in parallel because I told you like the capacitor is a stiff voltage element and the inductor is a stiff current element. Okay, I'll discuss further about this basic concepts when we discuss about DC-DC converters. Now, coming to the content, which I want to more elaborate is why PV and then PV working, then PV model, PV characteristics, why MPPT. Then I'm more into DC-DC converters. Then I'll just have a little glance, like maybe 10 or 5 minutes about maximum power point tracking techniques. So coming to PV, these are like PV. You already aware that sun is more abundant in nature, and then silicon on the other side is also abundant in nature, right? We are utilizing more abundant in nature. That's why that PV becomes more sustainable. And however, the drawback is like we have to make that silicon to a pure form. So the conversion is costlier process. So ultimately, what we do was we take P material, we take N-type silicon material, and then when they join together, then a depletion region forms. We are already aware about the PN junction. Now, if photons hit on photons, if the enough energy is there to hit the electrons and make it free, then hole pair will happen. Hole and electron separation take place, and then electron moves to N region and hole moves to P region. Then of course it moves because of electrical field intensity present at depletion region. Now once if some external load is connected, then electron starts moving. There are so many videos available on the online. You just go through online and then understand the working of the solar panel. Obviously the amount of energy delivered by the panel depends upon the insolation. We technically we name that as insolation or irradiation. The units for the insolation is either we take as kilowatts per meter square or watts per meter square. So if you see the biggest plants, one is Badla around 2225 megawatts of units, and other is Shaktisthala. It is around 2000 megawatts. Okay, now even government from last decade, it is encouraging by giving a lot of subsidies. Nowadays, even distribution companies also is encouraging by giving subsidies for rooftop installations. Anyway, so there are two main class of solar cell. One is polycrystalline, other is monocrystalline. Monocrystalline solar cell are more costlier. Of course, they are more efficient. But widely used solar cells are polycrystalline because of low cost. Now coming to PV model, if you see a PV model, usually we represent with a current source. We represent with current source, and a diode and RSH and series resistance. This is a equivalent circuit of or single diode equivalent circuit of circuit of solar cell. There are some other models are available. One is double diode representation of solar cell, but here in most of the authors prefer going for single diode because it is computationally less burden. Now coming to the modeling part, this IPH is a photocurrent. It depends upon the solar irradiation. Like if we have more solar irradiation, that means if radiation is good, then we have more photocurrent. Otherwise, photocurrent is proportional to solar irradiation. Then I naught is a diode current. This is called a diode current, and this is a current through shunt resistance because some recombinations will take place in the solar cell. That recombinations are indicated with a parallel resistance passage. And similarly, you are aware that for a solar panel, we have DC bus bars. You have fingers, like fingers to collect the electrons. They do have some resistance. Therefore, in order to represent the resistance of the fingers or bus bars, some series resistance is connected like this. Now, coming to equivalent modeling part. So, for any type of analysis, usually we go for a simulation. For doing that simulation or for doing simulation either in MATLAB or any software tool, so mathematical modeling has to be developed. So coming to mathematical modeling of PV panel, this is given here. Okay, though it looks much complex, actually this was derived from this by observing the KCL at this point. If you take the KCL at this point, then if you write, then you know that IPV is the PV current here. IPV is equal to IPH minus I0 minus IRSH, current through shunt resistance. But what is I0? I0 is diode equation current. This is you can the diode equation current is given by using this formula. I0 exponential the voltage across the diode divided by eta VT, where beta is a thermal voltage minus 1. And what is the current through the resistance? It is simply this potential divided by this resistance. This potential is given by VPV plus IPV into RSH. VPV plus IPV into RSH will give this potential. So divided by RSH will give the current through the RSH. Like this, we can have this PV current or cell output current. Now, as I demonstrated you that IPH is a function of solar insolation. Here, solar insolation is given by lambda. Now, there is like this photocurrent is a function of time also. This when the temperature increases, the photocurrent increases, and similarly, the voltage also varies with respect to temperatures. In order to include the change of, in order to include the effect of temperature, these two equations will help us to include the effect of temperature on photocurrent and open circuit voltage. Now, once if you know the open circuit voltage, then of a module, then we have to find the open circuit voltage of the cell by taking a ratio VOC divided by NS. If you go to data sheet of any PV panel, then you will be finding few items. Anyway, I'll discuss bit later. They'll give number of cells, like what is the open circuit voltage, what is the short circuit current, what is the current at peak power, and what is the voltage at peak power. Okay, now, so this is like saturation at normal temperature is given by like this, and if you want to find the saturation current at the operating temperature, this is the equation given. In this equation, the RS is found at taking the slope at the open circuit voltage. So this is the equation which gives the RS. So this you can get it from data sheet. So in all this, like eta and K Boltzmann constant, these are some constants. Q value, they are constants, right? Now coming to a typical IV characteristics, if you use that model, then you will get a curve like this. You will get a PV curve or IV curve like this. You see, this is IV curve. This is IV curve. So if you have I and if you obtain V, then if you plot I versus V, then you will get a curve like this. So I want to give here a small information like what if series, what if they connected in series, what if they connected in parallel. You already aware that once if they are connected in series, then voltage will be aiding. You see, the voltage will be aiding. This indicates that voltage is aiding. This is a series connection. And what if they connected in parallel? Like if this is for a single cell, if they connect in parallel, okay, then current increases. You already aware, like two current sources are connected in parallel, then net current increases. Okay, right? Coming to a typical PV module specifications, if you want to purchase any PV modules, then these are the specifications. Of course, if you observe at the back side of the PV panel, then you could see this any panel. One is PMAX, UOC, VMPP, ISC, MPP. Here I have shown you a few simulations. For the simulations shown, the specifications of the PV panel are like PMAX is equal to 20 watts and VOC is equal to 21, VMPP is equal to 17.2, ISC is equal to 1.28, and IMPP is equal to 1.2 amperes. Now let me see what is meant by MPPT in PV systems under uniform insulation. Why it is important? So first of all, in order to demonstrate that, what I did was I have taken 6 panels. The 6 panels are connected in series. Then you see this power versus voltage curve. You see, this is the current versus voltage curve. This is obtained by using the previous PV model. Once if you know this, once if the power versus voltage and current versus voltage, if you know, then you could find few observations from this power versus voltage and current versus voltage. We can identify few observations. Of course, this is at full insulation. Now you see, once if I change the temperatures, I have plotted power versus voltage and current versus voltage. Once if the insulation is either, sometimes in some textbooks they put lambda, in some research articles they include G as insulation. So here lambda and G are same insulation, that is kilowatts per meter square. So if you change the insulation, I have represented the power versus voltage and current versus voltage. So what is immediate observations from this curves is that if the insulation changes, then the power from the PV changes. You see, once if the insulation is 1, the power is around 120. If the insulation is around 0.8, the power is around 90. And the insulation is some 0.6, the power is some close to 65. So the power magnitude is varying. The output power magnitude of the PV is varying with respect to insulation, and similarly temperature also. At this temperature it is close to 120. At temperature is equal to 50 degrees, it is close to 110. So what is the observation here is compared to standard test conditions, which is depicted in the specifications. The specification says 120 watts. It doesn't mean that it always gives 120. It depends upon the solar irradiation temperature. So if the irradiation changes or if the temperature changes, therefore the PV power changes accordingly. So the power from the PV varies with respect to ambient temperature conditions. That's why the PV power is more volatile in nature. Now, and that is one observation. Other observation which I want to show from this curve is, you see the peak power. If your focus is on the location of the peak power, you see at this point the voltage is close to 106. The peak, that means the voltage at peak power is close to some 106, and at this point the voltage at peak is close to 100, and at the G is equal to 0.6, the voltage at the peak goes to around 95 or something around 90. So what is the observation we have to check is, once if the insulation changes, then the operating point has to be changed. For example, if you take G is equal to 1 and G is equal to 0.2, I am comparing previously that insulation is 1 kilowatt per meter square because of some clouds or because of any other reasons. If the insulation is changed to 0.2, what will happen, we will see. So once if you operate at 106 volts, if the insulation is changed to 0.2, if you are operating at the same 106 volts, then the PV power, it is not giving any PV, it is not giving any power. See, it is not giving any power. So at 106, it is not giving any power. but the available power is 20 watts. So if you are not able to utilize the 20 watts, then no, we are not effectively utilizing the PV source, because we purchase the PV source. They, as the manufacturing cost is too high for the PV, so we are capital cost invested on the PV is high. It is always important to harvest the maximum available energy from the PV. Okay. Similarly, temperature applies. Temperature peak power. For example, if this is an operating point, for the same operating voltage, if you maintain the same operating voltage, even the insulation is constant. You see, we are operating it here. If the temperature is around 50 degrees centigrade, previously, if you are operating at 106, when the temperature is 25 degrees, we are getting a 120 watts. But now, if you are not changing the operating voltage, we operate around 100 watts, which is not visible. But the maximum available energy is available power is close to 115. So the idea here is, we need to change the operating point. Depends upon the insulation, depends on the temperature all the time. So in order to change the operating point, then we usually use a typical DC-DC converters, which is the point of interest, which will be discussed a bit later. Now coming to other part which I want to focus is, which I want to introduce is partial shaded condition. So partial shaded condition means, you see, because of neighboring buildings or neighboring trees or improper installations of solar panels, then few panels may receive non-uniform insolation. What is the problem here is, the immediate effect is it has multiple peaks. Unlike you have seen the PV curve for a uniform distribution, it is of single peak, but here we have multiple peaks. You see, depends upon the type of PV pattern, like depends upon the values. Like here it is 1, 1, 0.5, 0.5, 0.3, 0.3. So depends upon these values. So you may have different PV curves. So the important observation here is, so once if it is under a partial shaded condition, that means we have a shading on few panels, then the PV curve may exhibit multiple peaks. Of course, once if we have a shading, other important observation is, of course, the output power will be reduced. That is obviously true. And other important observation must be, it has multiple peaks in the PV curve. Okay. Now, how do we model? So once if they are operated under non-uniform insulation, that is partial shaded condition, is like this. Of course, like here lambda is 1, lambda is equal to 0.8, lambda is equal to 0.6. So for example, lambda, if the lambda is equal to 1, if lambda is equal to 1, that means here assume that the current is 10 amperes, like mean photo current, because I told you photo current is a function of insulation. This photo current is 10 amperes. Now here, if lambda is equal to 0.8, the photo current is 8 amperes. If lambda is equal to 0.6, the photo current is 6 amperes. Now, if the current it's flowing from 0 to 6 amperes, if this is called series string current, the current is between 0 to 6 amperes. What will happen was, all of this panels, the voltage is positive. That means it acts like a source. For a source, the current is flowing from minus to plus. The current is flowing from minus to plus. So 0 to 6, I mean, the current from 0 to 6 amperes, all of this acts like a source only. But if you exceed 6 amperes, between 6 to 8 amperes, between 6 to 8 amperes, so if the current through the PV panel is greater than the photo current, if that is the case, then if you go through the equation of the current, then what you can understand was the voltage becomes negative. If the voltage becomes negative, you see what will happen if the voltage becomes negative. If the voltage becomes negative without the presence of these diodes, assume that there is no diode here. Without the presence of the diode, the voltage is negative. It acts like a sink. Therefore, hot spots will be formed. In order to avoid that hot spots, so people or manufacturers usually prefer connecting a bypass diode, which bypasses the current when the voltage is negative. So if you connect a diode, if the voltage becomes negative, what will happen? You see, this diode starts conducting. Therefore, it is like this part is not appeared. This the voltage of this third part is not appeared. Okay, third module is not appeared. Similarly, 8 to 1, if the current is between 8 to 1 ampere, 0 to 6, between 0 to 6, all the PV module voltages are positive only. 6 to 8, this voltage module is negative. Because of this diode, this is bypassed. This PV panel is bypassed. And then from 8 to 1 ampere, 8 to 10 amperes. So this is bypassed. Like that, this and this, both these are bypassed through these diodes. Anyway, so this is how we do the modeling of PV system under partial shaded conditions. Okay, whichever I have expressed, this is the waveforms of partial, like normal output is like this. Under partial shaded conditions, once if the current increases, the voltage decreases, and then here one panel was cut down, and here another panel was cut down. So here another panel was cut down. Okay, so that's why array voltage decreases. Now, if you plot the power versus voltage curve, this is how it appears, right? Now, see, for either uniform condition or either partial shaded condition, one important observation is, operating point has to be varied. That's very important. So, who will change the operating point? Who will change the operating point is important here. Okay. Now, so here we come to the major part of the discussion today. That is a DC-DC converters. So let me give a good introduction about a DC-DC converters. Up to this audience, anybody has any doubts? Audience, anybody has any doubts, or shall I start DC-DC right now?
Sir, how that peaks which we are getting here, how it can be made equal? We are getting so many peaks due to the partial shading conditions.
Okay.
So can we make it equal, or it is not possible also?
No, actually, like there are some topologies available.
Any doubts ఉన్నాయా participants అని?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, now see, there are few techniques available to minimize the peaks also. Partial shaded condition can be minimized a little bit, but we cannot mitigate it. For example, if we have more number of panels connected in, like if they connected in parallel, then this effect will decrease.
Okay, sir.
Hello? Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
For example, all the panels are connected in parallel. If all the panels are connected in parallel, then this effect will decrease, or it will mitigate also. Okay, but what is the problem if you connect in parallel? Because, if you want to, what is the problem once if they connect in parallel is, once if you are interested in connecting it to the grid, then obviously, we need VRMS into √2 times the voltage.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Right? So we need a large size DC-DC converters to boost that DC voltage, because parallel means voltage is less.
Yes, sir. Current will be high, voltage will be less, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody has?
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please show the slide number 14?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, here one box is there, boost converter, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what is the importance of this boost converter, and how we can replace this boost converter with the other circuitry? Is there any option, or we have to use the boost converter only?
No need to use boost converter only, but I have some good clarifications. I will discuss in DC-DC converters. Next session, I'll just after 10 minutes or after your doubts is clarified, then I'll express what is the importance of DC converters and all. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, can you explain MPPT technique, sir, in PV? How can we extract maximum power?
Okay.
Okay.
Shall I discuss bit later? I will cover
Okay, sir.
the point. So while
Okay, okay, sir.
the point.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, good. Next session.
Hello.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, why you consider the lambda value 0.81 and then
No,
0.6?
Yeah, actually, if you see the solar irradiation usually in terms of watts per meter square. See, if you want to demonstrate efficiency, hello,
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
it's kilowatts
Hello.
per meter square. Yes.
No, sir.
Hello?
I am asking you lambda value, sir.
Lambda or G, both of them are called solar irradiation. Solar irradiation,
Okay.
they are the solar panel, which is given by kilowatts per meter square. Their units are kilowatts per meter square.
What is the range of irradiance, sir?
Usually between 0 to 1000.
0 to 1000, sir?
1000 watts per meter square.
Okay, okay, sir.
Like, usually the standard value is given for 0 to like 1000 watts per meter square. Like once if you see in PV panel manufacturing details, then they test the PV system at 1000 watts per meter square. Like if I say 60 watts panel, by 60 watts panel means once if you have irradiation 1000 watts per meter square and the 25 degrees, it gives,
Calculate the irradiance, sir.
sorry.
Hello.
Yes,
Good morning, sir.
good morning.
Sir, how the converter will identify the partial shading point, sir?
I will discuss bit later, okay?
Thank you, sir.
I'll discuss them. Okay, coming to DC-DC, shall I start to DC-DC converters?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, here in this slide number 14, you are taking the inputs for MPPT controller are the sensor output of current and voltage at PV terminal, right? At slide number 14 only.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sir. In this, in some literatures, we also take the feedback, like voltage around the load resistance or load, voltage and current as a reference to MPPT controller. So you are going to discuss that also?
Yes, sir. Yes. Actually, of course, that is not in my point, but I can discuss, no issue. See, the logic is very
Okay,
simple here. The logic is very simple. If you assume that the output load is constant, you should assume that
Yes,
the
sir.
load is standalone load or standalone
Okay.
some load. I think you know about passive load. We have not connected any
Yeah.
batteries. Okay. Then
Okay.
how do you get maximum power? If you maintain the more voltage across the load, that in itself indicates that I am talking maximum power from the PV, right?
Okay.
Are you clear? So assume that the load is resistance R.
Okay, sir.
Then you know power is equal to V square by R.
Okay.
If I maximize the voltage, then I am maximizing the power, right? Load power.
Okay, sir.
Then what is the meaning of that? That means I'm drawing more power from the PV.
Right, sir.
Correct, na? So either you can take IPV into VPV,
Yes,
or
sir.
I can take voltage as a reference, or if you assume that the load is battery, load you take battery. Instead of load, you take battery. For a battery, the voltage is constant. If that voltage is constant, if you have a current sensor, if you try to extract more current, that indicates that you are tracking more power from the PV, right?
Okay, sir.
Correct, na?
So in that case, in the battery case, we will take a feedback loop.
You can
Right.
take the feedback
From
as
the
a
output.
battery current you can take. You can take the feedback
Okay.
as
So
current.
is there any criteria? Is there any criteria, sir, when we have to take the feedback loop for MPPT controller, or when we take from the terminal input and output, VM and IM,
Yeah, actually,
V and IM around the.
actually B input, I input, or B output or I output is possible, right? B in
Right,
I
right,
in
sir.
or B in I out is possible. So here, don't know about the load, whether you
Yes,
may connect it to load, you may connect it to battery. That's why people more often prefer voltage at PV and then current through the PV.
Sir, sorry to
okay, okay,
interrupt,
sir.
sir.
Got it.
Shankar sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. With your
No issue.
permission, Shankar sir, dear
Yes.
participants, please post your questions in the chat box, and we will provide the feedback link at the end of the session, and also we will take some queries at the end of the session. Okay, sir? Shankar sir, is it okay
Yeah.
for you?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, sir. You can continue, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, now
Okay.
we stop the queries now. So once if you complete about the DC-DC concepts, then you might be understanding what is there in your doubts. I think most of your doubts will be clarified. In case if you have some further doubts, you can always ping me. Now, let me take you to DC-DC converters. See, I am coming from very fundamentals. It may take little time, but still, I think it is worth it. Now, you take a simple a source 10 volts. I want to get it 2 volts. In the previous days, what we do was we have a rheostat, and then once if I change the rheostat value, then I can change the output voltage. You are aware. The problem here is, current might some I value is flowing through the loop. Then the loss in the resistance in the rheostat is I into 8. You see, I into 8 is some I is flowing through. I is flowing through the circuit. Then the loss itself is I into 8 because I need 2 volts only. If I need 2 volts only, then voltage drop across the rheostat must be 8. Then the loss is I into 8 because I need the voltage at this resistance, which is 2 volts. But in order to bring the voltage of this resistance to 2 volts, I am connecting another rheostat, making a drop equal to 8 volts, and then getting the voltage here 2 volts. This is a less efficient method. Of course, another problem here is it is not a automatic, automatic control is not possible because we need to do manually. If I want to get 8 volts, we need to do manually. We cannot provide any closed loop operation. And later, if you see many regulated power supplies which are available in the laboratory, like 0 to 30 volts, you might be seeing dual regulated power supply, which has backside they have big transistors. They also regulate the voltage. But how they regulate the voltage is, if for example, if this is a 10 volts voltage source, if I decide 5 volts voltage source, then this transistor operates in active region. It operates in active region, and this voltage drop is a function of this current. The voltage drop is a function of this current. Now here also, once if they operate in active region, so once if the current flow is like this, if the current flow is like this, then I into 5 is a loss. That I into 5 is a power loss. Then in order to transistor safely works at a limited temperature. Once if it exceeds the temperature, then it spoils. Therefore, you could see that there are big heat sinks connected backside of the dual power supplies. So what I want to take away from these two is these two are inefficient when they operate in active region. See, this transistor, if they operate in active region, they are inefficient method. But of course, we are getting a constant. You see, we are getting a smooth voltage 5 volts, or smooth voltage 2 volts, or smooth voltage 6 volts. Okay. Now what is the important point we need to understand was see, though we are getting a smooth voltage, but the problem is it has higher losses. Now people has come with some other solution. what is the solution is, instead of operating this transistor in active region, it is better to operate the transistor in cutoff and saturation region. Now, what is meant by cutoff region? That means cutoff region means it's a like off state. Saturation means on state. Now, you just imagine like if the switch is closed, what is the output voltage? It is 10 volts. If the switch is closed, the output voltage is 10 volts. If the switch is open, what is the output voltage? 0. Let you take here, I have represented this is the input voltage and this is the output voltage, right? Now, if the switch is closed, the output voltage is equal to input voltage. If the switch is open, the output voltage is equal to 0. So this process continues, like if it continues. So for example, if I talk in terms of time, if the switch is closed for 0.001 second, if the switch is open for 0.001 second, if it continues to close and open, then what will happen was, if you see the average value, average output value, depends upon on time and off time. It varies, like average. Now here average value is 5 volts. You see, the average value is 5 because on time is equal to off time. The average value, how to compute the average value. The average value is 5 volts. But the see here, two things you have to observe, because we are operating in saturation cutoff. That means in off region and on region. Ideally speaking, once if it is on, the voltage is 0. Therefore, the power is 0. Once if it is off, the current is 0. Therefore, power absorbed by the transistor is 0. Ideally speaking. Therefore, this is more efficient method. But what is the drawback? The drawback is, so we expect 5 volts like this, but what is the output voltage? We are getting 10 0, 10 0, 10 0. This is how you are getting the output voltage, but the expected voltage is a constant 5 volts. Then what we need to do? So we need to see here we have, if you go through this the waveform, square waveform, it has both DC components and AC components. We can separate both DC components and AC components by Fourier series. You already aware how to separate. Now the idea here is you need only DC component. You don't want AC component. If you remove the AC component, then you'll get a DC component like this 5 volts. But who will remove the AC component is, you already aware, LC filter. LC filter means low pass filter. Low pass filter will allow the DC component and it will block the high frequency component. You see, if you take this L value, the impedance of inductance is given by omega L. For a higher frequency component, the impedance is more. Therefore, it is stopping the higher frequency component. Okay, and then you see this part, it is inversely proportional to frequency. That means it is bypassing the higher frequency component. So in both the cases, so the load is seeing only DC components. The load is seeing, of course, it is not, we cannot completely mitigate, but most of the AC components are filtered or attenuated by this LC filter. Okay, but one important thing is, see, assume that the voltage is some finite value at the capacitor, like 5 volts. Let this is 10 volts. If we close the switch, what will happen? The voltage across inductor is some finite value. It is a constant value. Then what is the current through the inductor? I is equal to V is equal to L into d by dt. Then delta I by delta t is equal to V by L. So there is some finite current which rises linearly. So delta I by delta t. So it linearly increases with respect to time. The current through the inductor linearly increases. So if I want to open the switch suddenly, okay, if I want to open the switch, then so what we are doing, we are breaking the inductor current. But from the physics, from the fundamentals of this electrical circuits, you already aware that inductor doesn't allow sudden change in current. What will happen if we make the sudden change in current? Delta I by delta E is if it is very high value, because if I change the current, if I open the switch means with no time, we are with a very low time, otherwise with very low time we are changing the current. So delta I value is far greater than delta T. Therefore, delta I by delta T is more. Then voltage across the inductor rises. If the voltage across the inductor rises, then that reflects on the semiconductor devices, and then semiconductor devices will spoil. So what we are supposed to do was we had to provide some freewheeling path. We had to provide some freewheeling path for the inductor current to discharge because it was raised to some finite value. But once if you have a switch in series, then if you simply open the switch, the current has to come to 0. But the law of physics of this inductor doesn't allow that property. Therefore, we have to connect some semiconductor device to circulate the energy stored in the inductor. So this diode is often used. Diode is here is named as freewheeling diode, which freewheels the amount of energy stored in the inductor. So another way of description is, once if the I is positive, half Li square, some amount of energy is stored in the inductor. So once if you have a diode, so we are releasing the energy. We are releasing the energy through the diode. That's why it is named as freewheeling diode. Right? Now, with this, so once after connecting the LC filter, then you will smoothen, like the output voltage will be like this, will be a constant value, but it may have some ripples also. So obviously the amount of ripples depends on the value of L and C. In other words, when you are designing a DC-DC converter, first you have to identify what is the allowable ripple factor at the output, and based on the allowable ripple factor, you need to compute the value of L and C. There are so many textbooks available. So with the value of given ripple factor, like if you want to purchase a DC-DC converter, if you go to market, then they'll ask what is the current, what is the current, what is the rating of the DC-DC converter to be designed, then what should be the ripple factor at the output, and what should be the change, like what is the allowable change in the input voltage. These are some important design parameters. Once if you fix the design parameters, then we need to design. There are so many textbooks available to identify the values of L and C. Right? Now what we are doing was, so we are changing the duty ratio here. If I close the switch, the output voltage is equal to input voltage. If I open the switch, the output voltage is equal to 0. So ultimately it depends upon the on time, the output voltage varies. Of course, I'll show you the output voltage of a simple buck converter. You already aware the output voltage of the buck converter is given by V out is equal to V in into duty ratio, V in into duty ratio, right? So now I am moving to another converter. Another converter is a buck converter. You already aware what is a buck converter. Sorry, I already complete. This is a whatever I have discussed is a buck converter. This is a buck converter. Now boost converter. See, the fundamental derivation of boost converter is emerged by taking a power equation. You know that for a lossless converter, if you take a transformer, if the transformer is lossless, then V1 I1 is equal to V2 I2. Similarly for a DC-DC converter also, if it is the lossless DC-DC converter, then the input power is equal to output power. That is V in I in is equal to V out I out. Now, so if I want to boost the voltage, what I need to do was I need to buck the current. If I reduce the current at the output, that indicates that I am increasing the voltage at the output. That's a logic. The logic is if I reduce the current at the output, I am increasing the voltage at the output. That's a logic. Now, so you take a current source of 10 amperes. Okay, and this is a load. So here I have closed the switch for half time and then open the switch for half time. What will happen? We will get a current. For example, if I close the switch, then what will happen is that load current is equal to source current 10 amperes. If I open the switch, the load current is equal to 0. Okay, now I can able to control the current based on the time of on and time of off. How much time I am turning on and how much time I am turning off. Right? So I could able to change the output current. What is that? If I able to change the output current, so I can able to change the output voltage because V1 I1 is equal to V2 I2. Okay, if I am talking in terms of values, if V1 is equal to 10 and I1 is equal to 10, okay, and if I2 is equal to 100, then V1 is 1 only. But if I1 is equal, I2 is equal to 1, then V2 must be equal to 100. So, V1, I1 must be equal to V2, I2. If I am bucking the current, that indicates that we are boosting the voltage. So, that's why we make an arrangement of bucking the current. Now, do we have a current source? No, we don't have a current source. We have a voltage source. The idea is we need to reduce the voltage value. So, we have a voltage source. But we are converting that same voltage source into current source. How can we convert a voltage source into current source? We can convert voltage source into current source by taking a large value of inductor in series with a voltage source, right? So we have a inductor, we have a voltage source, a large value of inductor is taken so that it acts like a current source. Now this this switch, mechanical switch, is realized using this diode. Okay. Now what will happen if the switch is closed? The switch is closed, the output voltage is equal to 0. The switch is open. Of course, like I discussed, switch is closed. This current is the source current. If this is open, the source current is equal to load current. Now, after observing this wave shape, current is 5. Current is expected value of current is 5 amperes, but I do have a average current is 5 amperes, but no, actual current is 10 amperes, 0 amperes, 10 amperes, 0 amperes. Then again, I need to stop that AC components. In order to stop that AC components, then we already inductor is there. Therefore, I connected the rest, the remaining LC part, LC filter part, that is capacitor across the load. But you see these 3 parameters like resistance, capacitor, switch. Switch and the capacitor never should be connected in parallel. Of course, there is one place where we connect switch and inductor in series and capacitor and switch in parallel. That part I will discuss a bit later. But here, this capacitor and the switch are connected. It should never be connected in parallel, because once if I close the switch, the voltage across the capacitor is shorted. We should not allow, the capacitor doesn't allow sudden change in voltage. This is not possible. Okay, so the IGBT or the transistor or semiconductor will spoil. So what we need to do was, we have to allow the current flow from here to here, but we have to avoid the short circuit between the capacitor and the switch. What I need to do, if I want to do that, if I want to do this, if I want to pass the current from this area to this area, but I have to oppose the shorting of the capacitor. If I want to do that, then you need to connect a capacitor, a diode here. If I connect a diode here, then you are stopping the short circuit of the capacitor. If this is closed, the capacitor will not be short circuited because of the presence of diode. Diode will stop the current, the flow of current when this is on. Okay, this is about the working of DC-DC converter, that to boost converter. Okay, now again I am just showing you both. One is buck converter, other is boost converter. You see, this is buck converter and this is boost converter. Now coming to PV application, whether we need to go with the PV with the buck converter or boost converter, there are so many parameters to be discussed here. The one important parameter is the ripple factor, input ripple factor. See, whenever you are taking the PV, okay, you just remember, it's like a thumb rule. The input current, if the input current ripples of the converter is less, then the converter is efficient converter for PV system. Okay, now it is like this. For example, you take a simple buck converter. The buck converter has a switch in series with the source. It has a switch in series with the source. In order to get the required output voltage, we are on and off. We are switching on and off. We are switching off. And on time and off time depends upon how much voltage you want. But once if you have a switch in series with the source, so once the switch is open, if it is a PV panel, if the source is the PV panel, if the switch is open, that means you are not able to absorb any power from the PV. You see, you are not able to absorb any power from the PV because switch is open. But here, if you take a boost converter, whether switch is closed or switch is open, you are able to absorb power from the PV because it is always connected. Switch is not connected in series with the source. It is not connected. So switch is connected after the inductor. Therefore, in all the case, when the switch is closed or switch is open, it is all the time it is able to extract the power from the PV system. When the switch is on, when the switch is off, it is still able to extract the power from the PV. Okay, right? Now coming to other topology is buck boost topology. So this is a buck boost topology. So you see, this is a buck converter, this is a boost converter. Okay, this is a buck boost converter. So up to now we have discussed about the evolution of buck converter and boost converter, but this buck boost converter is an interesting converter. Why? Because you see, once if it was off, you see, once if it is off circuit, okay, once the switch is off, this diode is on. You see how the circuit is like inductor, capacitor, and resistance are in parallel. Okay, once the switch is off. Once the switch is off for the buck converter, you see the inductor, capacitor, because once the switch is off, diode is conducting. Then inductor, capacitor, and resistance are in parallel. That means if buck boost converter in the off mode is equal to off mode of buck converter. So once the buck converter switch is off, inductor, capacitor, and resistance are parallel. The buck boost converter switch is off, the inductor, capacitor, and resistance are in parallel, right? So off mode of buck boost converter is similar to off mode of buck converter. Now coming to another observation of buck boost converter, on mode, what will happen if it is on? If it is on, if this switch is on, this is off. That means what will happen? This capacitor is supplying to the resistance and this source is energizing the inductor. Now coming to boost converter, in the boost converter you see this is off when the switch is on. So the capacitor is, the source is energizing the inductor and the capacitor is energizing the load. So the similarity you see, if it is during on state of a buck boost converter, it is similar to on state of boost converter. So buck boost converter has a typical feature like this. If the duty ratio is less, that means if it is more off time, if the circuit is having more off time, that means that it is more like a buck converter. If the circuit is more on time, it is more like a boost converter. That is why the output voltage of the buck boost converter is D by 1 minus D. If the D value is less than 0.5, it behaves like a buck. If the D value is more than 0.5, it is behaving like a boost. Okay. Now, so this is the end of DC-DC converter discussions. Of course, there are some other points to be addressed. I will discuss in the presentation. Okay, this is how boost converter is. I have shown you this part also. Now, for a boost converter, in order to identify the voltage across the output equations. So ultimately, I want you to tell here, you need to do some average voltage balance, average voltage second balance equal to 0. That is VL. So if you derive this, then you'll get output voltage equal to V in by 1 minus D. Of course, there are so many textbooks available, so you can refer it. So output voltage is equal to V in by 1 minus D for output voltage is equal to V in by 1 minus D for a boost converter. For a buck converter, it is output voltage is equal to D into Vn. Now I am taking the boost converter alone. Just I want to explain you what is the importance of this boost converter with the presence of PV system. Now you see, take this as a source. The source is PV. The source is PV. Now this is a load. This is a load, R load. Now this is the load resistance and this is a source. Now once if we have lambda, like the lambda means lambda is equal to 1 or lambda is equal to 0.8 under one fixed solar irradiation, okay, the resistance of the PV panel, like there was some peak value like RMPP, we call RMPP, that is resistance at peak power. There was one resistance at peak power, RMPP, that solar panel has some resistance, RMPP. You already aware from maximum power transfer theorem, the load resistance is equal to source resistance, then maximum power will be delivered. Okay, the load resistance is equal to source resistance, then maximum power will be delivered. But this RMPP, one typical behavior of RMPP is it varies with respect to time. It is not constant. It is varies with respect to temperature. RMPP varies with respect to insulation. But the load resistance is constant. The load resistance is constant, but RMPP is varying. But under all the conditions, I want to track the maximum power. But if you are directly connected a resistance, is it possible? If source resistance is varying, then load resistance is constant. We cannot observe the power, maximum power under all conditions. We will get the power conditions when the source resistance is equal to load resistance only. Okay. So in order to bring the load resistance is equal to source resistance, shall we take a rheostat and vary the rheostat to make the source resistance equal to load resistance? It is not possible. Physically, we cannot do it because the irradiation changes throughout the day. We cannot sit and then vary the resistance value, right? Now, who will do that? Who will do the change option? Change the load resistance and make equal to the source resistance. Who will do is a DC-DC converter. How? I will just show you here. Okay, you already aware that the equivalent resistance. So equivalent resistance seen from this panel. You see the equivalent resistance seen by the source. Here source may be PV also. Is Vn by In. We know the equivalent resistance seen from the PV is Vn by In. Now what is Vn? If you know Vout is equal to Vn by 1 minus d, Vn is equal to Vout into 1 minus d. So 1 minus d into Vout. What is In? On the other hand, so In is equal to Iout by 1 minus d. So from this expression, because V in is equal to Vout Iout, if Vout is equal to Vn by 1 minus d, then from that we can calculate Iout also, and then we can find the relation between Vout by Iout. What is that Vout by Iout? So here Vn is equal to 1 minus d into Vout, In is equal to Iout by 1 minus d. Then if you take Vout by Iout, which is equal to R load, you see R load. So 1 minus d by 1 minus d is 1 minus d square. So 1 minus d square into Vout by Iout, which is equal to 1 minus d square into R load. So the R equivalent, that means the resistance seen across the PV panel is equal to 1 minus d square into R load, right? So if I change the duty ratio such that 1 minus d square R load is equal to RMPP, then I can get always the maximum power. In order to understand further, assume that RMPP is equal to 10. RMPP is equal to 10. Okay, R load is equal to 10. If RMPP is equal to 10, R load is equal to 10, what should be the duty ratio? Duty ratio should be 0. So 1 minus d square is 0. So 0 into 1 minus d is 0 means 1 square. 1 square into 10 is 10. So you are getting maximum power. If RMPP is changed to 6, but load resistance is 10 only, then how do I get the maximum power to be transferred from load to source? Is by changing this 1 minus d square equal to 0.6. If I make 1 minus d square into 0.6 is equal to 0.6, then 0.6 into 10 gives 6, which is equal to RMPP. Because of this 6 is because of change in insulation and temperature. So always we need to adjust the duty ratios in order to see that the impedance matching is taking place. Impedance matching means RMPP, the resistance at the peak power, must be equal to the effective resistance across the solar panel, which is given by 1 minus d square into R load. Okay. Now, again, how the conventional MPPT algorithm works. So there are few algorithms available, Petabend observer incremental conductance method, or so many algorithms are available. Just I want to discuss about Petabend observer method here. See here, what we do was we operated one duty ratio or one voltage. Okay, and we sense the power. Assume that at a voltage of, we fix the initial duty ratio or initial voltage, then we find the corresponding power. Then we increase the duty ratio to some other new value. For example, now instead of duty ratio, I discuss in terms of voltage for you to understand better. So first, if voltage is 120, if the operating voltage is 120, at 120, what is the power? Power is 60 watts. Okay, now I change the voltage to new value, that is 110 volts. What will happen if it is 110 volts? You see, at 110 volts or some smaller value I'll take, instead of like it is 120. For 120 volts, the power is 16. For 120 or 130, sorry, for 120 volts, the power is 16. For 115 volts, the power is something close to 65. Okay, so here, as the voltage decreases, the power increases. So if I go in the same direction, so it is like this. So we have fixed voltage, you decrease the voltage to some other value and then change and check the power. Whether the new power is greater than old power or not, you check. If the new power is greater than old power, then decrease the voltage further. Okay, and then check again whether the new power is greater than old power. If the new power is still greater than old power, then you change the voltage, you decrease the voltage further. So direction, I'm talking about the direction. If the voltage is decreasing, if the power is increasing, you go until the direction, until the new power is less than old power, you can go the same direction. But here at 100 volts, you see the power is 120. But if I decrease the voltage to 95, what is happening? If I decrease the voltage to 95, the power is decreased. So the new power is not greater than old power. Then you change the direction. Changing the direction means previously decrement mode, now you increase the voltage to 100. So the P&O algorithm, it starts here and then check the power, and it checks for the another value of voltage and checks the new power. If the new power is greater than old power, it keep on going the same direction until it satisfies that P new power is greater than P old power. But if P new power is not greater than P old power, if it is not satisfying, the equation P new is greater than P old is not satisfying, then you change the direction of voltage. That means V plus delta V. Previously, delta V is negative. Then if it reaches here, then delta V you have to make it positive. Okay, this is how a P&O algorithm will work. Now coming to the PV curves under partial shaded conditions, some typical curves I have shown you. Like depends upon insolation, depends upon the temperature, depends upon the quantum of shading on the panels. Then you may have different PV curves. You may have like this, you may have like this. Okay. Now, if you just use the PO algorithm, it starts here, okay, and it reaches here. It starts here and reaches here. You see, for this pattern, it starts here and reaches here. So here there are few terms you must understand. This is one peak, this is one peak, this is one peak. This is called a global peak. This is called a local peak. This is called local peak. See, P&O algorithm, once if it starts here, next iteration goes here. As it is going here, new power is always less than old power. So it is always toggled between these two positions. It doesn't know whether this location, whether that location, whether it is a global peak or local peak. It is settled into peak. But POE it has no intelligence to detect whether that is a global peak or local peak. Now coming to other curve, you see other curve. So here, if the curve is like this, if it starts, if the PO operating point starts from here, it is reaching the global peak. Now, what is the important observation here you have to make is, see, under partial shaded conditions, there are some multiple peaks. Okay, the P&O algorithm may settle or may not settle. It may settle to local peak or it may settle to global peak. It depends on the type of PV curve and depends on the starting search point. That means if the starting search point is this, then it is able to detect the global peak. If the starting search point is this, it will settles to this peak. If the starting search pointing is this, it settles to this peak. Okay, so the conclusion is the perturb and observe method or few conventional techniques doesn't guarantee global convergence. It doesn't guarantee global convergence. It may settle to local convergence also. Okay, so there are few techniques available. So in order to do any optimization problems or one such type of techniques where we implement it to track the global maximum power point all the time. Here what we do was we randomly, it is like this. All these algorithms work like this. It generates random duty ratio and then identify the corresponding power, and generates random duty ratio, identify corresponding power. And you already aware, if you are generating randomly different duty ratios, at one point of time we may get the power at which we'll get the maximum duty ratio, like maximum PV power. So we may identify the location here. We may identify the location here. I'll discuss in another way. Assume that these are in terms of duty ratio. So at 20% duty ratio, so first we'll hit some duty ratio, 20% duty, what is the power? At 40% duty, what is the power? 60% duty, what is the power? And 80% duty, what is the power? Like that, we randomly pick some duty ratios and we will identify the corresponding power. And after some time, if you are not able to identify the peak value for so many iterations, then you can stop and then run the algorithm at this point. Okay, these are some meta heuristics techniques are available. Of course, you can refer various textbook or various reference or research articles to understand further. Now, just for your understanding, so I have taken 2 PV patterns. Okay, like 6. This is called 6 series configuration. Why it is 6 series? Because 6 panels are in series. That is why this name of pattern is called 6 series configuration. Under one set of insulation, assume that the pattern is like this, and the other set of patterns like insulations, this is like this. Now I have simulated like this, 20 seconds and 20 seconds I have taken. You see pattern 1, what is the peak power of the pattern 1 is around 52. So PNO algorithm is able to track the 52 watts. Coming to pattern 2, the peak power is 40, but it is reaching 32.73. You see, it is that PNO other method is taking this point as a reference. You see this. It is not able to identify this point. It is able to identify. It is identifying this local peak, not global peak. Okay, coming to some PSO algorithm where that is a beta heuristic algorithm. We have like random nature is incorporated in a PSO algorithm, and it is able to track global maximum power point in both the cases. You see, here it is 52.2, this is 52.2, here it is around 39.3 and 52.2. You see, so this algorithms is able to track the global maximum power point. Okay, and this conventional algorithms will not will have some difficulties, some problems, like it is unable to track the GMPP all the time. It depends upon the profile of the PV curve and starting search point. Now, any doubts up to this part? Any doubts? Of course, see, understanding partial shaded condition and PSO algorithm, how you are able to tracking is it requires another session. But at this point of time, what I want you to understand is like how the maximum power point tracking is working. What is the importance of DC-DC converters in MPPT tracking, and what is the working of DC-DC converters? How that evolution has taken place, like a DC-DC buck converter, DC-DC boost converter, and buck boost converter. Okay, now I am opening to the audience any discussions at this point. So later I want you to explore like a few other points, like what is the drawbacks of the converters which I have demonstrated, and then what is the scope of research we can focus. Yes, from audience, any doubts?
Sir, Shankar sir.
Yes, madam.
Sir, with your permission, sir, dear participants, if you have any doubts, you can post in the chat box, and the feedback link will be provided within few minutes. Any queries, please post in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions to sir. Sir, CH Amesh Rao is asking one question, sir. How to find the allowable ripple factor?
How to find the allowable
ripple factor? Allowable ripple factor.
Yes, they like as I told you, the value of L and C, value L and C should be taken care, or it should be designed such that to get a desired ripple factor. That is one design parameter we have to give for designing the LC values. Hello.
Sir, yes, sir. Sir,
Hello.
next,
Yes.
Hello, sir. I am Kamesh Rao. I was asking the question that, sir, in this, can we find the allowable ripple factor on the basis of load? Is there any criteria or something? Means any literature you can refer me?
Yes, actually there was one textbook. Actually, once if the capacitor and capacitor is the one which decides the ripple factor at the output, right? Now, based on the value of load, the ripple factor will varies. Hello.
Okay.
We
Yes, sir.
cannot
Yes,
always
sir. I'm listening.
we cannot always say that I have taken the desired value of ripple factor is some 0.01, and then the ripple factor is constant for all the type of loads. We cannot say, because what is happening? You unmute all.
Yourself, sir. I muted all. Shankar, sir. Hello, Shankar, sir.
Hello.
Shankar, sir.
Is
Hello?
it audible now?
Yes, sir. It is audible, sir.
Okay. Coming to DC-DC converters, capacitor is connected to load. Okay. Now, if sometimes in a buck converter, if you take source is not connected to load all the time. Once if it is off, the capacitor is giving the complete power. That means it depends upon the load value. The charge previously it was accumulated, but once if the load is either increasing or decreasing, the charge discharge take place. Okay. Therefore, the voltage across the capacitor changes. Therefore, voltage ripple changes. So load is an important factor in designing the ripple factor. So for a fixed load, what is the ripple factor? And for that, you have to design the L and C value. And this ripple factor holds good for that load only. The load increases, ripple factor obviously decreases. Sorry, increases. Ripple factor increases.
Sir, can you give any formula or something to calculate that ripple factor? Actually, what I found in literature is that we are taking the allowable current ripple is around 20%, 0 to 20%, and for voltage ripple we are taking as 0 to 5% we take, and depending on that we calculate the LNC values.
Correct.
So,
but that is not true for all.
Is there any formula? Yeah, is there any formula or something for calculating the ripple factor depending on the load?
Yeah, the formula is like this. Yes, you can do it. For example, Q is equal to CV. You already aware, right?
Okay.
Q is equal to CV. What is Q?
Q is the charge, sir.
Q is equal to I by T, right?
Yes,
G I by dt is equal to C into V. Otherwise, V is equal to 1 by C into dV by dt. That's the equations right? So you identify the rate of discharge current. You identify the rate of discharge current. I mean, for example, you just assume that it is a constant current source. You take the load as a constant current. Assume the constant current source. Hello.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am following.
Assume it is a constant current source.
Yes, sir. I am following.
Let it is 10 amperes.
Okay, sir.
Hello. Let it
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now you identify what is the turn on time.
Okay.
And then depends upon the turn on time and rate of turn on time and current rate, you can find the rate of change of voltage.
Okay.
Okay, because the fundamental V is equal to 1 by C. That equation, like voltage across the capacitor equation, you take.
Okay, sir.
Voltage across capacitor equation. Fundamental equation, voltage across capacitor equation.
Voltage across capacitor. Voltage is equals to C1
Sir, I integral of C
I
into
equals C dV by dt. I equals to C dV by dt.
It is 1 by C
Right?
integral ID. It is 1
Yes,
by
sir,
C
yes, sir.
integral.
Yeah. 1 by C integral I dV by IDT. Sorry.
1 by C integral IDT, right? Now C is fixed.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Capacitor
sir.
is fixed value.
Okay.
Right? Now,
Yes, sir.
you know, current value is discharging when you are when the switch is off, right?
Yes, sir.
Then you take minus 10 integral dt, minus 10 integral like 0 to t off, 0 to t off. See, you
Yes,
take
sir.
integration parameter 0 to t off, then minus
Yes, sir.
10, minus 10, okay, dt you take.
Okay.
Then the voltage is decreasing like a triangular waveform, the voltage is decreasing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And similarly, if it is charging, the
Okay.
voltage is increasing. So you can identify the
Increasing.
rate of, yeah, we can identify the ripple factor. Yes. Based on the load, you can
Okay,
identify.
sir.
Are you clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm following. Means
Based on the load,
we have to first find the current value, what is changing across the load, and then
yes.
depending on the formula, you told that capacitor formula, we can find the voltage rate change, right?
Yes, that's
Right.
That's
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
yes. Anybody
Hello,
else?
sir. Sir, hello. Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes.
So, how can you determine the value of output capacitor in boost converter, sir, in order to eliminate that, or in order to find out the output voltage ripple?
Yeah, actually, I have one source with me.
Yeah.
There are some textbooks available in order to identify the value of L and C for a given ripple factor. It is there available in the literature. I can share you.
Okay.
Okay, I can share you the source.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Shankar sir,
Yes.
question from Satya Pavan Kumar Voleti. Sir, flyback converter is useful for PV system. He's asking flyback converter is useful for PV system.
Yes, there are so many converter topologies. I am coming to that point only now. Okay, I'm talking about I'm coming to that point. Any other doubts?
Yes, sir. Does operating point depends upon duty cycle of power converter? Syed Abdul Mujir, a question.
Yes. That is what we discussed. Like R is R code.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, how many cells are connected in series? How many cells are connected in parallel? In order to get this one, is there any formula is required, sir?
No, actually, again, it's a design parameter. Depends upon how much voltage you need. At the input level, what is the amount of input voltage you need? It's important. It's important design parameter. Based on that, you have to connect in series or parallel. Like the parallel is connected based on requirement of the output voltage and output current.
Requirement of the output voltage, output current. We need to place the series. How many number of cells are in series or parallel?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir Shankar sir, one more question from Neha Sharma. How to overcome the drawback? How to overcome the drawback of conventional converter?
Yeah, I'm coming to the points. Shall I start?
Sir, one more question, sir.
Yes, proceed.
P&O technique, the incremental conductance technique, ripple correlation technique, short circuit current technique, and open circuit voltage technique. In all MPPT methods, which one is good?
See, actually, though there are names are looking same, incremental conductance method or P&O method. So many like fractional order, they do have their own limitations and advantages. for example, if you see fractional current method, we have to open circuit the PV system for small time, and then we identify, we have to short circuit the PV panel, and then identify what is the insulation. Based on that, we are taking 0.9 into ISC, at which we have IMPP. And if it is open circuit voltage, then you have to take 0.8 into open circuit voltage, then we are that is close to VMPP. So identifying open circuit voltage at particular insulation, we need to open the PV module, or we need to short circuit for the short circuit test. Okay, so if you want the current to be continuous all the time, it is required also. So if you monitor the power system approach, complete power system stability, it is obviously better to have like neither open circuit voltage nor short circuit is not preferable, because at one point of time we have to open or close the switch. I mean, we have to short circuit the PV modules, or we have to open circuit the PV modules. On the other hand, PO and incremental conductance method, both, if you like, we in literature people say that PO algorithm has little oscillations at a steady state, whereas incremental conductance has less ripples at the steady state. But again, it's not true on the real sense. If you change the duty ratio, because they say that they operate dV by di is equal to I by V, because at a peak power point, the slope of voltage is 0. They use that is why it is named as incremental conductance. But no, there is small differences like oscillations at steady state. Okay, incremental conductance has we cannot judge at this point of time, we cannot judge which method is better, but incremental conductance has little advantage over PO, but short circuit test and open circuit voltage has few drawbacks, like we are not feeding the power when we want to find the short circuit current and when we want to find the open circuit voltage, right? Okay, then next.
Yes, sir. There are no more queries. You may proceed, sir.
Okay, now coming to the conventional converters, there are few disadvantages with the conventional converters. One is non-isolated. Of course, we prefer sometimes isolated converters, sometimes non-isolated converters, because they are like, what is meant by non-isolated converters means, the output voltage and the input voltage, somehow they are electrical connected. In case of buck converter, ground point is common. Boost converter, ground point is common. Okay, they are electrically connected. Non-isolated means they are electrically connected. Somehow they are electrically connected. Some applications requires a galvanic isolations. Like a transformer, you see transformer is electrically isolated. If you take CT and PT, why CT and PT are used? CT and PT are exclusively used for providing the isolation to operate safely. Similarly, few applications demand isolation, galvanic isolation. So the conventional converters are non-isolated converters. And one more drawback is it's a hard switching. It's a hard switching means in DC-DC converters, hard switching means we are opening the switch or we are closing the switch with finite values of voltage and current. For example, so at current I is equal to 10 amperes, we are opening the switch. Okay, during the closing the switch, the voltage across the switch may be 10 volts. We are closing the switch at that instant. That is called hard switching. That means the current values and the voltage values, there are some finite values are there during the hard switching. The switching losses is a function of blocking voltage at the time of closing and current at the time of opening. Okay, so the switching losses will be minimized once if you go for soft switching. So the drawback of the conventional switching is hard switching, but there are some soft switching converters available. Let me discuss a bit later. Then coming to other important drawback is high input current ripples. As I discussed with you, the buck converter and boost converter has more ripples because they have series switch. Boost converter is comparatively better, but still boost converter is not efficient. We cannot say that ripples is very low for the boost converter also. but boost converter is comparatively better than buck and buck boost. But overall, it has high current ripples. So somebody can do some research in minimizing the input current ripples. Another thing is, if you take a boost converter, it's a non-minimum phase system. What is mean by non-minimum phase system means? See, the dynamic response, I'm talking in terms of dynamic response, it is not good for a non-minimum phase system. The non-minimum phase system means if you find the transfer function of the boost converter, then you may have right hand zeros, like zeros at the right hand. Because of the zeros at the right hand, the system dynamics are very poor. The meaning is, for example, if the voltage, if the duty ratio is increased from 0.6 to 0.7, the voltage is supposed to increase from 10 to 12, for example. Then it starts like that. Instead of increasing from 10 to 12, first it decreases and then increases later. So, you are getting some time, it is taking some time to settle. That means the dynamic response is poor for non-minimum phase systems. Okay, there are few topologies are existing in the literature where they are minimum, like they avoid this type of problems. Then low voltage gain, the voltage gain is 1 by 1 minus d. Theoretically, we know the gain is infinity. Output voltage is equal to 1 by 1 minus d into V in. D is equal to 0 or d is equal to 1. Theoretically, the gain is infinity. But practically, the gain is only 4 times then the input voltage. It is limited to 4 times the input voltage. There are so many parasitic elements come into picture. Whatever we discuss is an ideal component, but the switch is not an ideal. It has some non-linearities. The inductor has some non-linearities. Capacitor has some non-linearities. If you take the non-linearities into consideration, then the gain is limited to 4 times only. Okay. Then these converters are unidirectional. Some applications desire bidirectional, especially battery charging applications desire bidirectional. In order to address this, there are so many converters has evolved. This is one bidirectional converter. It is like like if you on off this switch, then it is like acting like a boost converter from VL to VH. If you on off S1 switch, then it acts like a buck converter. The power is transferred from VH to VL. Coming to interleaved converters, this is to reduce the input current ripples. The idea here is you have two converters, just you connect in parallel, and then you see that they are operated at 180 degrees phase shift. Previously, this is one. Let you assume that this is the ripples of a boost converter, and you take other boost converter. You operate the other boost converter such that the current is like this. You see, the current is like this, like 180 degrees phase shift. If you open the switch and then you open the switch for after 180 degrees, that means this two you have a phase shift of 180, and then you plot the current. If you plot the current, this is the IL1 and this is the IL2. Then you take the sum. What will happen? Then the net ripples decreases. This is how the interleaved converters will work. Then somebody asked me that forward converter. There are some like similar to forward converter. Again, forward converter is again buck converter. It's an isolated converter. Here also it's a push-pull converter. Just I have shown you, instead of like forward converter also I could have shown, but this is a push-pull converter. Here you have galvanic isolation is there between the source and load. You could see. Okay, you can they based on time and off time, then output voltage can be varied. Of course, based on the turns ratio also we can vary the output voltage. That's the advantage. Of course, one drawback is we need high frequency transformer. That's the drawback. But if you have high frequency transformer, the advantage is we can provide a galvanic isolation. Another advantage is we can change the duty ratio so that we can increase the range of output voltage as we desired. Coming to soft converters, as I told you, like hard switching causes some losses, because hard switching means we are closing the switch when we have a finite voltage, we are opening the switch when we have finite current. Under these two conditions, we have losses. that is switching losses. The switching losses will be more prominent if the switching frequency increases. But if the increase in switching frequency, the L value and C value becomes more compact. So we need to judicially choose the values of the frequency. On the other hand, if you take the soft converters, you see the soft converters is like this. L and C values are connected. You see here we have taken the switch parallel to C. You see the capacitor and switch, usually they are not supposed to connect in parallel, but here we connected capacitor and switch connected in parallel, and here the inductor and switch connected in series. You see, the idea of working is like this. See, when we make 100 ampere case, you just observe, when we are taking 100 ampere case, then even if you apply a DC voltage, you are already aware about the current. The current goes, it increases and then decreases to 1 point. It decreases to 0. Then if it decreases to 0, if I open at that point, that becomes 0 current switching. Then, you know, once if I have a voltage source, if I have a voltage source here, and then you know that voltage across the capacitor, also if it is 100 ampere condition, also becomes 0 at one instant. At that time, if I close the switch, that indicates that that is a 0 voltage switching. Okay. The problem with the soft converter, these are also known as resonant converters. The problem is, in order to get the different currents, the frequencies has to be adjusted. Okay, the frequency is not constant for this type of converters. The frequency has to be adjusted based on the output load or output voltage. Okay. So with this, I have finished my lecture. If anybody has any doubts, you can raise the doubts now, and then we can conclude.
Sir, Shekhar sir, one question from participant Ravikiran Inapakurti. Which practice is good, placing the switch in negative terminal or positive terminal?
Okay. Which practice is good in placing negative terminal or positive?
Yes, sir. Placing the switch.
Hello, is it audible?
Sir, it's audible, sir. Which practice is good, placing the switch in negative terminal or positive terminal?
See, one important point you have to remember is there was some leakage current flow in the PV once if the switch position is not properly selected and turned on. So few literature is already available that is called common mode voltage problems. Of course, if the inverter has come into picture, the inverter is connected to the grid. Then there was a problem called common mode voltage problem. That's a serious problem. We have to think about it. In literature, it is available how to reduce the common mode voltage. But coming to the answers, it depends upon the topology. We mostly prefer connect the switches in series to the positive terminals. We mostly prefer, in case if it is possible. Few applications it is not possible, but for a there are some other requirements also. As I told you, the major requirements of any converter is designing with less ripples. The converter must have less ripples. It must be more efficient. The operating it should be more compact in nature. Okay, it must be more efficient. So when we are going for that objectives, sometimes we may have switches connected at negative terminals also. Okay, so once if you require one objective, then we have to lose other objective. That's the way. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any other doubts?
Yes, sir. One more question. Sir, what is the main area for scope of research? By Prithvi Kumar Raj.
Yeah, actually, this area has many people are already doing a lot of literature. So from my side, if you want to develop, then what you do was you identify your application first. You identify the application. Based on the application, you try to develop the converter. Okay. So in DC-DC converters especially, there is a lot of scope in reliability analysis. Lot of scope is there. Okay, reliability analysis, what happens if the finding the reliability of this system, reliability of the second topology. Developing the topology is one. Developing the topology, people are already doing. So developing the topology to minimize the input current ripples or minimizing the output voltage ripples, or going for soft switching or reducing the number of switches. Okay. But at the same time, if you are able to check the reliability aspects into the design, reliability for design is one word or fuzzy word these days people are using. So that is also good area. One is application specific, other is reliability issues, or you can address.
Yes, sir. Dear participants, if you have any queries, please post in the chat box, or you can directly interact with the resource person.
Hello.
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 Yes.
Hello, Shankar sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Is there means many literatures I found that there is some problem to the inductor with the frequency, switching frequency. Can you elaborate this? Means this happens?
Yes, this happens. The logic is very simple. For example, you have an inductor. The inductor is basically storing some energy and then releasing some energy, right? It is storing it's storing energy in the form of magnetic field, electromagnetic field, and releasing the energy whenever it requires. It is storing, it requires this, it is releasing, right? Now, if the charging and discharging takes place faster, I mean, fastly I am charging, fastly I am discharging. I'm talking about the frequency, because on time and off time, the total time put together is time period. 1 by time period gives the frequency. The frequency is high, then with a very small time we are charging and we are discharging. We are charging and we are discharging. On the other hand, if the frequency is low, then the amount of you have a particular value of L. So on time is very high, off time is also very high. That means based on time and off time, you have to charge that much energy and you have to release that much energy. The amount of charged energy and amount of released energy depends upon the frequency. So the L value increases, the frequency decreases. Are you clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
For
sir.
example, I want to fill a simple bucket. I want to fill a simple bucket of water. Okay, I have a small spoon. Okay, if the spoon size is big, the spoon size is big. If the process is slow, then we require more spoon size. If the process is low, we require more spoon size. The process is quick, then we require less spoon size, right?
Right, sir.
Are you clear?
Sir, what happens when inductor saturates? Means how the DC-DC converter will behave?
See, there are difficulties once if you are not able to design properly. One is like inductor may get saturated, because as I told you in the previous also, the boost converter gain is limited to 4. Why it is limited to 4 is because it should have some time to discharge. You know, the delta I, there was one equation when we are deriving the steady state performance. That equation is volt second balance must be equal to 0. If you are not able to match the volt second balance, then the inductor will get saturated, and then inductor will get spoiled. That means saturation means what is the meaning?
What happens?
Yeah, what is the meaning of saturation? Means you are charging something. You are charging some energy,
yes,
and
sir.
you are not able to discharge it.
Right.
You are charging something, you are not able to discharge it. That means half Li square. If you take half Li square, no, I value is
Yes,
keep on increasing. because energy you are charging half Li square. Previously I is 4. Previously I is 4, and then you are like, so from source it is charging. It is going to 6. Okay, you are not able to discharge 6 to 4 again. You are not able to discharge. Somehow you are not able to discharge 6 to 4. If it is discharged from 6 to 5, then in the next cycle during charge time, it is going from 5 to 7, then 7 to 6, then 6 to 8, 8 to 7. Are you clear? The current value is increasing, is half Li square is increasing. That means current is increasing. The current is increasing every, like inductor is means it's a wire, wounded wire. It has some thermal limits. Therefore, inductor gets spoiled.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have one doubt from Hemant Kumar. So, what is the cost efficient DC-DC converters to be used for low power PV system? See, low power PV system, cost efficient method means you can go with a simple boost converter technique. You can go with a simple boost converter because either buck or boost, the number of components are required are same only. Of course, depends upon the output voltage and other parameters also. We cannot simply say that boost also. Yes. Any other doubts?
Dear participants, if you have any queries, you can ask the resource
Can you,
sir,
one
more question.
Ravi Kiran, Ravi Kiran, you asked me to suggest a good marketplace buying inductor course in India.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
BP Electronics. There was one BP. You just Google it. BP Electronics. BP Electronics is one person from Gujarat, I think. I don't know where it is from. BP Electronics. You just Google it. BP Electronics. They do supply the cores, and like they do supply cores and bobbins. Like you have to assemble that inductor. You can design your own inductor. They supply E cores. They supply U cores. They supply toroids, suckler cores. They supply bobbins also. You can identify which is suitable for you and then purchase. That is BP Electronics. BP Electronics.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Sir, when you are explaining the boost converter, you said that it is we are bucking the current, right? So similarly, if we say in the buck converter, we are boosting the current. Is it right?
Correct, na?
Is this state?
Yes. That is absolutely correct. Once if we are bucking the voltage, the meaning is we are boosting the, correct, na?
At the same rate, means for example, if we are bucking the voltage by half, so we can say that the current will be doubled.
See, assuming it is lost. Yes, assuming it is lossless, V1 I1 must be equal to I2, and moreover, you see, inductor doesn't observe any power because if you assume that inductor is idle, capacitor is idle, diode is idle. In all the cases, there is no energy absorbing element. We are operating the transistor in saturation cutoff region. Therefore, it is like on time and off time. Ideally, there is no, losses. But yes, practically we have some limitations. Inductor do has resistance, capacitor do have some parasitic elements, and switch has some on-state resistance, and we have switching losses. Therefore, current may decrease, but equations may vary little bit. Like we cannot completely say that if the voltage is decreased by half times and the current is twice, we cannot say, because the power loss is actual. There is some finite power loss is there in the DC-DC converters. Okay, another question I got is how the converter identifies the partial shaded condition and normal conditions. Converter has no brain. Converter has no brain. It's like actuator. The brain is algorithm. The algorithm operates at different duty ratios and then identifies maximum power point tracking. Okay. Of course, the converter has to allow that duty ratio operation. Allow that operation. converters has to allow that particular operation. For example, if RMPP is equal to 6 ohms, if RMPP is equal to 6 ohms, then you already seen that the resistance across the PV panel from the PV converter is 1 minus D square into R load. If R load is 5, we cannot get 6 because D is less than 1. We cannot get 6 RMPP. So the converter and the load also has to give some provision for us to track the maximum power. Are you clear? Ganesh, Parthu, are you clear?
Yes, sir. Dear participants, still any queries? Sir, Shankar sir, there are no queries in the chat box. Shall we wind up the session, sir? Are you done with the presentation?
Hello?
Shankar sir, shall we wind up the session, sir? Are you done with the presentation? Sir, your voice is not audible. Sir, Shankar sir. Sir, one more question in the chat box. Any computational tool is okay if you model perfectly.
That is my answer for a query. So one Sunil Kumar has asked me which simulation software is suitable for releasing this. I told him any computation tool is okay if you model perfectly.
Okay, sir. Okay.
You can go with Python. You can go with MATLAB. Yes, you can go with any type of software. Once if you know the modeling part perfectly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think yes, you can conclude now. Sridevi, you can.
Please share some resource for calculating ripple factors. Sir? Sir? Your voice is not audible, sir.
Yes, you can.
Yes, sir.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now
Okay.
is it audible? Yeah, you please conclude then. It's over.
Okay.
From my side, it's over.
Okay, sir. Now I request HOD sir to speak few words, sir.
Hello, dear participants, thank you very much for your huge response. Nearly 180 participants are continuously listening throughout the session. It is a grand success, it indicates that. And I am also thankful to the resource person, Dr. Shankar Pedipati Garu, for delivering his wonderful and clear and neat lecture. And I am also thankful to our management to provide this opportunity for online platform, and also thankful to my whole department team for their continuous support and making it grand success. And based on the feedback also, we are getting that so many of participants are ready to join the upcoming online platform from NSRIT. So definitely we are giving the word to plan this type of online platform for all of you, and will be intimated you in short. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shankar sir.